Hi everyone, Tim from Classic Register here. Today we're having a look at the Series 1 E-Type Jaguar. The Series 1 was produced from 1961 to 1967. This particular car is a 66 model. The purpose of this video guide is to complement the written guide that you can see on screen now. And we're going to go around the car and look at the various features of the Series 1 E-Type, from the exterior features, interior features, as well as the various codes that are applicable to these cars. Starting on the external features of the car, the E-Type Series 1 was available in three body styles. You had the open two-seater, as we see here. We had the two-seater fixed head coupe, and you also had a 2+2 coupe that was introduced in 1966. Now, the most prominent feature of the Series 1 cars are the covered headlights, as you can see here, and also all Series 1 cars had the indicators above the bumper bars. On the US market cars, generally these indicators were clear lens. On British and European market cars, they were amber. Coming around the side of the car, another Series 1 feature is the wing nuts on the wheels, on the 72 spoke wheels here. On later Series E-Types, they actually lost the wings due to safety regulations, and on the Series 1.5 as well, and some late Series 1 cars, the headlights were actually open as a result of mainly US regulations that changed. Another unique feature of the Series 1 cars are the three bows in the roof on the open two-seater model. You can sort of see them there, but if we come inside the car here, you can see the three across the top there. Later model E-Type convertibles had just two bows, a revised design. Another thing which I can't show you on this car, but I can show you where it is. On the sides, on the very early models, we had external bonnet locks. The first several hundred left-hand drive cars and the first 92 right-hand drive cars had the bonnet locks on the outside of the bonnet here, rather than inside the car. On the later cars, they were moved inside, obviously for practicality purposes. Another difference in the bonnet is on the louvers here. Very early cars actually had these panels separately welded in, but the later cars had these panels as part of the entire bonnet stamping. Another feature you'll notice at the rear of the car is the tail lights above the bumpers again on the Series 1. American market cars had all red lenses, and European and British market cars had the amber indicator lenses. Moving on to the boot badge. For the model year 1965, the 4.2 litre engine was introduced, and you had the 4.2 badge on the trunk there. For earlier years, you simply had the E-Type Jaguar badge without the engine capacity printed. In terms of the paint colours available, based on the research that we've done so far, we've identified about 25 factory paint codes. There may have been others, there may have been special factory order colours, but have a look at the ID guide for further details with respect to those colours and the various codes that applied. So inside the interior of the Series 1 now, and the most prominent thing you'll notice are the toggle switches here on the dash. These changed in the Series 1.5 as a result of US regulations. They went to the plastic rocker switches, which no one really likes, so this is the far more desirable setup that the earlier cars had. Another thing you'll notice, because this is a later 4.2 car, you've got the black vinyl finish on the dash, as opposed to the earlier aluminium finish, which applied to the dash fascia there. Some late 3.8 cars, I believe, to also have this black vinyl applied to the dash. And in the console here, the later cars in the Series 1 had a fully leather trimmed centre console. The earlier cars, 3.8s in particular, all had the polished aluminium which extended along there. And you'll be able to see more details of that in the written ID guide and some image examples, etc. of the earlier cars as well. Moving over to the instruments were Smith's gauges. The 4.2 litre cars had a 5,000 RPM limit, and the 3.8 cars redlined at 5,500 RPM. So keeping on with the interior here, there was a change in seat design between the 3.8 litre and 4.2 litre cars. On earlier 3.8 litre cars, the seats had a more curved or pointed top, whilst the 4.2 litre received the slightly larger seats with a more squared top and back ends. The design of the pleats in the seats was also significantly changed, and we've got some examples of that in the images on the written ID guide. There are also some changes made to the door card design during that period. We've got further details of that in the written guide as well. They're slightly different between the earlier and later cars. In terms of interior colour options, there were quite a number of options available, and generally these options depended on the paint colour of the car. We've summarised the combinations that we're aware of in some detail in the written ID guide, and you'll see some good images there of the various colours that were available. But again, like the paint colours, there may have been additional colours available, including special orders, but we'll keep an eye out on any further information that comes in. We'll add to the guide as it goes along. Moving into the seats in this particular car, you'll notice that they're not original. They look very nice and they really fit in with the car well, but these are actually out of an MX-5, and it's quite a popular and common conversion that's done to a lot of E-Types by owners, and it's mainly for the reason of both comfort and safety. Naturally, these seats are going to provide you, with a lot more protection with the headrests, etc., in the event of an accident. The good thing is there are now people out there who actually create brackets for these seats, which allow them to fit directly into the E-Type runners without any body modifications. And obviously you get added benefit of reclining functionality. The seats actually sit a bit lower, so for taller drivers it's actually a bit more comfortable, and they can be mounted a bit lower than the standard E-Type seats, which further assists in that respect. So this is really just a side note and to show you what these seats look like. They fit in really well if you ask me, and it's just an option that people have, particularly if they're going to be driving the cars a lot or going on a lot of tours. It's a good feature to have. It's a bit more comfortable and a bit of an extra safety net to have there. Another modification you can do having these MX-5 seats with the headrests is obviously the seat belts. Originally the early cars didn't come with seat belts, so this modification obviously adds an extra additional safety benefit, and having that with the headrests provides a much more safe and possibly comfortable ride depending on your height. Another major difference on the Series 1 cars is the floor design. Early cars, roughly the first 500 right-hand drive cars and the first 2,000 left-hand drive cars, had what are known as the flat floors. So this simply means that the floor well was not dished like in later cars, and it's a modification that was made for passenger comfort. As you can see in here, this is the later style dish floor pans, which gives the driver and the passenger a bit of extra room in the floor pan there. Through a UK Jaguar forum, we were actually able to manage to track down a copy of a Jaguar service bulletin, which confirmed the specific body numbers from which the flat floors were introduced, and we've published those numbers in section 2 of the written ID guide, so you can check those out if you're interested. We'll note that the numbers provided in that service bulletin still had a number of doubters and critics who claimed their cars were exceptions to this and they were built later with flat floors, so we can't be 100% sure. We can't entirely say that these numbers are correct, but it's the best piece of evidence we have so far, confirming exactly when this changeover occurred. Of course, there's always people that are claiming certain cars that are much later had flat floors, but of course, this cut-off, based on the body numbers that we've got on those documents, is probably the best guide to go off. So that's a quick summary of all of the interior items of the Series 1 cars. As I said, there's more details in the written ID guide, and we'll now start to move our way into the engine bay and have a look at some of the codes and other unique mechanical features of these cars. So inside the engine bay area now, and the first thing we'll look at is the motor itself. So both 3.8 and 4.2 engines look the same from a distance, essentially. All of the Series 1 cars had flat polished rocker covers, which changed to the rib covers on later series cars, which you can see examples of in our Series 1.5 guide. You have triple SU carburetors of a 2-inch bore, and alterations were made to that setup from the Series 1.5 cars from 1967 due to emissions regulations, particularly those in the US. Now, the earliest E-Types had a pumpkin orange cylinder head, and you can see the cylinder head here in gold. The paint code for those early engines is not known at this stage. It's been traced as high as engine number R25189, according to the Jaguar Club of North America. The later cylinder heads were painted Bradite Gold, or Jaguar Harvest Gold as it's known, and that's the colour that you can see on the video here. So having a look at the other side of the engine now, underneath the fuel filler bowl is where your vehicle's data plate is going to be located, and you can see it just down here where I'm pointing. You're going to have the various codes that are going to match up around the car based on this plate. So the first one at the top right of the plate, you're going to have your engine number. This is going to be confirmed in 2 locations on the motor itself. The first location I'll show you is on the front of the engine, at the front of the head. It's stamped into the top of the head there. And the second location, we can't see it from here, but it's down the side of the engine block, and you really have to have access behind the carburetors to see that information. The second item, the car number stamped at the top left of the plate. That number stamped there should match the number that's on top of the square frame that I'm pointing to down here, the square frame above the suspension strut arm there. With the body number, it's the bottom left code there, the body number of the car. The body number is located in several potentially different positions depending on the car. On a lot of the Series 1 cars, you'll have a small tag behind the number plate area here. On others, we've found it inside the trunk, usually on the left-hand side. And some very early cars have actually had it mounted on the bulkhead at the front of the car. Very few cars we've seen with that, but generally that's where those are located, and they should obviously match the number that's at the bottom left there on the data plate. The body number that we just mentioned will also potentially be handwritten in multiple locations in production crayon on certain panels of the vehicle. For example, on the rear hatch, often behind the trim, you can see these numbers written in the crayon. On the right or left front firewall of the car, and also sometimes behind the instrument cluster. These are several locations where it's commonly been seen. If the car hasn't been fully stripped and painted over, you might be able to see some of the body numbers also written on in that production crayon on those certain panels. So the final number we got here on the plate at the bottom right is the gearbox number. We won't be able to show you in this particular case because we're not able to get under the car and see it, but you'll see on our written ID guide exactly where that's located on the various types of gearboxes and the prefixes that apply to each of those gearboxes. Another thing we recommend you do if you're looking at buying an E-Type Jag, to determine the original specifications and information, you can actually order a certificate from Jaguar Heritage Trust, and it's a production record certificate, and that's going to go through all of the various codes and information that were original for that car. For example, it's got the make and model, it's got the chassis number, engine number, body number, even the original trim and paint colours that are applicable to that car, as well as who the first owner was and where it was delivered to. So if you are seriously looking at buying one of these cars, we recommend you do this search and check out all of the codes that we've gone through today and in the written ID guide. This has just been a quick guide to the Series 1 E-Type Jaguar. For more information, have a look at our written online guide, which you can see on screen now. Thanks very much for watching.